best manager in the Championship.
Just so you're all aware, I wanted it to put him first, but I'll let Oli take the lead on this.
Yeah, I've been absolutely done up like a kipper. Frank Lampard first. You heard it here. Best manager in the Championship.
Hello guys, welcome back to the Sportsman Untitled, a real special episode coming up for you today. We've got Burnley versus Sheffield United on Easter Monday, and joining me to preview that and talk about their season so far is Joe from Turfcast and Oli from Sheffield United Way. Oli, I think we should probably start with Sheffield United because 3 defeats in a row, Chris Wilder losing his head. What on earth is going on?
Yeah, we just didn't see it coming at all. It's one of those where, it felt as though for 39 games we'd almost played it perfectly. We'd managed to keep the pressure off. We were giving the right noises out there. We seemed to be sort of piling the pressure on the other teams, and we were just quietly sort of going under the radar. We weren't playing very well, don't get me wrong, and I think in hindsight, you can now see how the fact that we weren't playing very well has come back to bite us. But it just felt as though we were having this kind of momentum that carried us, but it's been a disaster. I think, we discussed it slightly off air there, but I think before, when Leeds had drawn to Swansea and we were kicking off against Oxford, we were a point in front with a game in hand. All we'd got to do was win, and it was massively in our hands. And it felt as though, I think the players thought that as well. I think there was an arrogance. I think there was a complacency in that game at Oxford only a week ago. And I think since then it's been panic stations. We didn't expect to lose at Oxford. We did. And that just set off the alarm bells. It set everybody going. And so we've then just sort of lost, and it's compounded it. And I think at Plymouth, everything went wrong. Everybody lost their minds. Pre-match press conference, Wilder's talking about pressure, and he's saying, Plymouth have got more pressure than us. They're going to get relegated. They've got to handle the pressure. And you could almost see a team where their heads have gone. And that just carried into the performance. So disappointing the way that it seems to have gone from there to just be completely out of our hands now, and we're relying on almost a miracle to try and get ourselves back into those automatic promotion spots.
Joe, how much did you enjoy Plymouth's late winner against Sheffield United this weekend?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I did obviously enjoy it. It went to 1-1, and I'm like, right, that's probably the best we can hope for. Let's hope that Plymouth hold out, and then they get that winner. Yeah, absolute scenes in my house. I'm not going to lie. But it's obviously Ollie's referenced a miracle. It's not done yet, but I'm feeling pretty confident, to be honest, at the minute. But, I think we haven't lost at home yet all season, yet they're going to need to beat us at home. I think you need us to lose 2 games. We've lost twice all season, so are we really going to lose 2 out of 4? This bit could be clipped up and put clown music over it at the end of the season, but it's looking unlikely that we mess it up from here. But yeah, it's not done, and I'm not arrogant about anything yet, but I am starting to feel a bit confident now.
We are, of course, talking before the mad Easter weekend where we've got a game on Friday. We're looking forward to this game on Easter Monday between Burnley and Sheffield United, but we'll get into that game a little bit more later on. We should probably talk in detail about Chris Wilder because, as you mentioned, Joe and Oli, he kind of lost his head a little bit. The clip of him going mad at the end of the game was something to treasure as itself. But as you say, before the game, he was going, Plymouth are bottom of the league. Yeah. Very weird.
Just, it's different to what we've done all season, and this is one of those things where, last season we brought him in when I think, I've been quite open about the fact that I wasn't certain about that decision at the time. I'm not sure anybody else in the top 2 divisions in England really would have been gambling on Chris Wilder at the moment we brought him back into a Premier League relegation battle, but he's really proved us wrong. He's been fantastic this season. He's rebuilt the squad, he's rebuilt the attitude of the club, really, to try and get us in this automatic promotion race. And almost all of that grinding out results, it felt as though he'd brought a real steel and a real resolve to the team that was carrying through everybody. But this last week, it does seem as though the pressure's just got on top of him, and I don't know what's driven that, I don't know what's caused it. But particularly against Plymouth, his pre-match was bizarre, I thought, the way he was talking about it, the way he was talking about Plymouth being bottom, the way he was talking about the pressure coming through. And then at full time, he gets all the players on the pitch for a public telling off, and that was bizarre. He's then gone straight over to start an argument with the Plymouth players celebrating. It all felt a little bit off. It felt like everything I didn't expect to see based on what we've had the rest of the season, but kind of what I thought might happen 18 months ago. So it's really bizarre to see the way that that's kind of imploded in itself. And obviously now it's a huge run of games. It's a huge run now for us over the next 6 weeks, I'm assuming we're going to be in the playoffs, and Wilder's got to keep his head for that. He's got to be able to handle the pressure, got to be able to take this forward. But it carried into the players, our club captain, Jack Robinson, he seemed like he was just spoiling for a fight all game against Plymouth. He was arguing with fans, arguing with their team, arguing with the refs. So, animatedly, it feels as though Wilder has run that kind of panic into the club now. And yeah, that's really concerning for me because I felt as though we were so far beyond that it's come out of nowhere. Yeah, and it really gives me a pause for concern.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like when you've got the figurehead in Wilder constantly creating all these narratives and this negative attitude, the players are going to then do that as well. Complete opposite, look at Scott Parker. Cool, calm, collected, wearing the best cardigans in the business. He's just...
Four or 5 grand, how much are those?
$4,500 that court is, yeah. I think I cracked a joke on here last time I was on here. It's more than the average house in Burnley, and someone gave me a bit of grief for that. But then you look at him and you look at how calm he is. I think you need that in these moments. What you don't need is somebody as emotional as Chris Wilder. And to be fair to Wilder, he's a Sheffield United fan, so I think that's what it is. It's the fan coming out of him, and he just needs to try and be a bit cooler. And the playoffs, like you mentioned already, they're going to be massive. And can he handle the pressure of the playoffs?
I think as well, we've played on that emotion so well this season. I'm thinking about the Coventry game where we were so impressive in terms of our performance. Thinking about the 2 games against Wednesday where we really handled the emotion of those days and just made it a game of football that we were the better team in. And so it felt as though he was handling it. But as soon as one thing went wrong, that feels the switch for me is the Oxford moment where we've gone into that game expected to win. And if you do win, we'd have been feeling very, very confident at that moment in time. And it's almost as if just one Rick has completely knocked him off centre, it's completely knocked him off course, and yeah, it's a problem.
But how much blame do you put at his door? Because I thought with the Oxford defeat, it was very interesting to see that for the next game he named exactly the same team. And when you've got as much talent on the bench as Sheffield United have, I mean, Callum O'Hare wasn't in that team, was he? And he was starting Brewster again. How much blame does Wilder take for these 3 defeats?
Yeah, it's bizarre because obviously you can see the psychology that goes into that game against Millwall. You can really see it's exactly the same 11. They'd played so well against Coventry, they'd then thrown in a stinker at Oxford. So he's saying to him, look, go again. You were the team who did this against Coventry. Prove to us that was your level and it's not the game against Oxford. So in your mind, you can almost understand the psychology, but it was just a mistake. And we knew at the time it was a mistake. At kick-off, everyone was going, cannot believe we've named the same team here. They were rubbish on Saturday. They then just played exactly the same for the first half against Millwall. It wasn't like we saw a reaction. It was just an exact continuation of everything we'd seen at Oxford, just carried on again for 45 minutes. And obviously by the time he did make the changes, we got better in the second half against Millwall, but it was too late. And we'd already found a way to throw that game away. And I do think both for his reactions and the way that he's managed himself, but also for some of those team selections, there is obviously blame at his door. He's done fantastically all season. There's so many things that he's done so well, and I don't want to go overboard. We're a team who've got more points than I ever would have imagined at this stage of the season. It's been a much better season. He's rebuilt us from a real position of just being on the floor and being laughed at in the Premier League. So it's not a massive over-exaggeration. It's not saying that he's had a disaster, but the last week has really exposed some massive flaws that he needs to look to fix if he's going to be the man who... I know what United's record's like in the playoffs. I'm not holding out a great deal of hope. And so, the fans will probably laugh at me a little bit, but I'm starting to think now, is he the man over the summer who's rebuilding, who's getting ready to go again, who's going to be the one who finally gets over that hurdle next season? There's big questions there based on what we've seen this last week.
Absolutely. And Burnley just keep on going, 29 games unbeaten now, are comfortable. But you like playing on a Friday night and getting the points done and then watching the Blades fall apart on the Saturday. It's going perfectly well, isn't it?
It were fantastic to play on Friday night and get the win, but obviously if we didn't get the win, it'd have been a very nervy Saturday. So yeah, thankfully we did get the win. Like you say, 29 games unbeaten now. November it was when we got beat against Millwall a long time ago.
How aren't Millwall top of the league? They just beat Millwall. Millwall just beat everyone.
So yeah, we're quite happy with obviously how it's gone. And yeah, good to get the win against Norwich. We were the better side. Second half, they probably did step onto us. They brought Sargent on. And they changed shape slightly, and they were probably the better side in the second half. But nobody scored twice against us all season in one game in the league. So when you go 2-0 up, you are feeling quietly confident that you're going to win the game. Obviously, they do get the goal. Bit of sloppy defending from us, to be fair, from the corner, which is unlike us. And then it was a nervy last 15, but yeah, ultimately, when you go 2-0 up, you're confident you're going to win as a Burnley fan now.
And we also saw Leeds win against Preston on Saturday. What are your thoughts on Leeds now, Ollie? I'll come to you first. seem to have kind of got back on track, but not 100% convincing.
No, exactly that. But it feels as though, again, it's that turning point for me. I think when the pressure was really on Leeds, they sort of really went through a difficult run, and it felt as though every Saturday they got punished for it. Every time they drew, and every time Meslier chucked one in his own net, they were punished by Burnley and United. No, every week it felt as though it was relentless they felt as though they couldn't make that mistake. I think they felt as though they got freedom in this last week, and so they've almost overcome two not fantastic performances, not convincing victories, but they almost felt as though the pressure was off a little bit. They weren't being punished for the mistakes, so they can play with a bit more freedom. I expect to see that now for the rest of the season. I think they will play with a freedom that maybe they've not had for a few months now. We know their level, and we know that ultimately, I don't think they are going to win the league, but I do think they are the best team in the league. And I think that's a real difference. But I think we might now see between here and the end of the season a team that do play a little bit with shackles off. I think they've still got a sort of moment in them because they're Leeds and that's what they do. But who am I to talk? I mean, look what we do. You know what I mean? Let's not get carried away all. So I think, I think they will do more than enough now to the end of the season. But I think a different team might be the ones who end up with a championship trophy at the end of the season.
Did you want to respond to that in terms of not the best team in the league, but probably going to win the league?
Probably agree. Well, don't know about if I agree we're going to win the league, but I probably agree we're probably not the best team in the league. I do think Leeds have got better starting 11 and a better squad. But just going back to your question, I think they've properly turned the corner now. That win at Middlesbrough and dropping Meslier, massive psychological boost for them. Like you could see the players were getting frustrated with him. The fans were obviously frustrated with him. He's then coming out, punching crosses, collecting crosses against Preston. I didn't catch the Middlesbrough game, but I watched him against Preston. He was coming out, collecting crosses, barking orders at his defence, just stuff that Meslier doesn't do. And I think that has given them a massive boost. And I actually think they probably go on to win the league, if I'm honest, Leeds.
Yeah. So predicting the champions, you're going Leeds and you're going Burnley.
Yeah.
Really? No.
Blades third then?
Yeah. What's annoying is last time I was here, I'd said it at that time, I came on, we were talking about it. It was just after Leeds had lost at Portsmouth. And I actually said that Burnley would win the league that day. I said United had come second, Leeds third, because I really saw that kind of run of form that came through Leeds. And if I'm being honest, I just didn't see the way that United have completely imploded. I just didn't see it coming at all. And it didn't feel as though it had been part of the season. Obviously, I'm no longer going to predict us to come second. But I think I still stick by. I think if you don't concede any goals, how do you lose any games? And ultimately, it feels to me as though Burnley have now hit that stride. They've found their attacking sort of structure. I think Marcus Edwards, probably the signing of the season, the way he's come in and had such a huge impact on the way that Burnley are playing, the way they're creating chances, scoring goals. I just don't really see where they're going to drop points at the minute. So, I feel like they're the team who are going to really kick on to the end of the season.
Yeah, it's interesting that because obviously this time 6 weeks ago we were talking about the promotion running and stuff and people were saying Burnley have got the toughest fixtures, they've got to play Bristol City at home, obviously we won that one, we've got to play Coventry away, we won that one, we've got to go to Derby, we're fighting for their lives, alright we drew 0-0, but there's all these games that we've come through and it's good to see now that teams and fans are looking at us and saying they've done well and they might go on to win the league, because this time 6 weeks ago people were saying that, well obviously you weren't, but a lot of people were saying Burnley had finished third out of the three battling for promotion.
How important is the title for you?
Not important at all right now. Ask me again in 2 weeks. If on Good Friday, if we obviously with the chances as it stands, we could go up on Good Friday against Blades, which would be a bit of a dagger to the heart of the Blades fans and stuff after battling with us for ages. If we get up, then obviously I want to win the league. Let's just get up first. Let's just finish in the top two, and then I'll be bothered about the league. Right now, I'm not bothered at all.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this game then. Burnley versus Sheffield United at Turf Moor. Sheffield United have to win, don't they? They now have to win to stand any chance of doing it.
No question, we've got to win this game of football. Not just this game, we've got to win every game. The only way that United stand any chance of getting that automatic promotion spot is 4 wins out of 4. There's no room for mistakes, errors, there's no falling over and putting them through on goal, there's no Jack Robinson not being able to control the ball. It's all got to be perfect football from now till the end of the season. Obviously, if we can get through Cardiff on Friday, put a little bit of pressure on, I know Burnley are the early kick-off, then it's us, then Leeds. So that's staggered, seeing how that pressure affects everybody. Does that start to play in everybody's mind? But we've got no other option. It's, to use an analogy from another sport, it's no miss snooker. We've got no option now. You've got to go out there. You can't miss. You've got to pot every ball. So, we've got to turn up to Turf Moor and really put in a proper performance, really show them that we are still one of the best teams in the league, and we've got no choice. 3 points or nothing.
Can you see Burnley losing this game? You haven't lost in about 4 years.
Yeah, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it? Like, Sheffield United are a good side. Yes, they've had a bit of a blip recently, that they can come to turf and win 1-0. Like, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. Obviously, I hope that isn't the case. I'd like to see us go a full season unbeaten. That would be one hell of achievement, which I've never seen us do before. Last time we were in the Prem, we actually lost the game before we won the league at Ewood, and I'm pretty certain we lost it on purpose. So it'd be nice to see us go the full season unbeaten. But yes, they can beat us. They have got the players. It's going to take, as Oli says, it's going to take one massive trajectory change for two clubs. Burnley are going to have to suddenly fall off a cliff for them to go up, and they're going to suddenly have to turn around their stinking form from the last 3 games. Like Oli says, they have to win 4 games between now and the end of the season. We have to lose 2. And we've lost twice all season. Are we going to lose 2 out of 4? Potentially, but I don't think we will. But they are capable of beating us, but I do think we beat them on the day, if I'm going to be honest with you.
It is a massive clash, and I think the one thing that does lean into Sheffield United's favour is the fact you've got the game against one of the worst teams in the league at the moment, Cardiff, to come on Friday. And we're not going to write Cardiff off, but I think they are prime candidates to go down now. You couldn't have asked for a kinder fixture, and I know you'd have said that about Plymouth.
Yeah,
I know you'd have said that about Oxford. But I think if you beat Cardiff, potentially, who've Burnley got on Friday? Potentially Watford. Potentially they could drop points. It changes the perspective of this game on Monday.
Yeah, completely. It's exactly that. And, as much as, you feel like throwing the towel in sometimes, you feel like saying, oh, it's gone, we've blown it, what's the point? We can't do that as a team, There's so much still to play for. And there is every chance that Burnley, draw 0-0. Like, let's not rule that out, that Burnley go to Watford, draw 0-0, and all of a sudden, there is an opportunity there. There's a little bit of momentum. There's a little bit of fear that maybe starts to creep into Turf Moor when United turn up, knowing that it's only a 3-point gap, knowing there's a chance for that really to ramp up on them. So, yeah, I think it does play into our hands. I think we've got to put in a performance against Cardiff. We can't just continue doing what we've been doing. We need to see a proper reaction in front of the fans at Bramall Lane, get everybody G'd up so that when we go to Turf Moor, we go there confident and we go there with a belief that we can get a result, because that's the main thing that's been lost in the last week. We don't really believe we can beat these teams now. We've got to go there. We've got to make a real statement.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, the flip side of it, if we do drop points at Watford, which again isn't beyond the realms of possibility, we drew at Derby recently. I know they're fighting for their lives. Watford might say they have an outside chance of the playoffs, but I think they're not going to do it. So I think playing against teams that don't have too much to play for will work for us. I think we beat Watford, then we could actually go up when we beat Blades. So we can drop points between now and then the trajectory, like you said, changes that game massively. But the beauty of it for us is now we can draw at Watford, get beat against them on Good Friday, Easter Monday, and still be second. That's the beauty of where we are at the minute. Everything was going into that game, but both sets of fans were always going, that game is the game. Whoever wins that game finishes second. Now it is a case of we can actually draw, then lose against them and still be second and still go up. So that's the cushion that we've got. It's not done. Obviously, it's not done. We could lose at Watford and then lose at home against Sheffield United, but that would be 2 defeats out of 2, and we've lost 2 out of 44 so far. So it's unlikely.
It's looking good so far. Right, we're going to do a couple of quick debates. I know we've talked about the manager a little bit, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds each to argue the case that your manager is the better and the superior one. So Chris Wilder, 30 seconds on Chris Wilder. Why is he better than Scott Parker? Take it away.
I think, well, it's all about this balance, but I think he is, because I think what you normally see is, through Chris Wilder's career, he's always proved himself able to rebuild a club, able to take them forward. He's got such a fantastic record. And I think where United were last season, we were so far behind Burnley, but also so far behind anybody. We were on our knees being laughed at as one of the worst Premier League teams in history. We've not just turned that around. We've turned it around and we've earned, 85 points so far this season. It's a ridiculous record. The way that, we've crumbled in the last week, and that happens, ultimately we're chasing 2 fantastic football teams whose pressure has just been relentless all season long, and we've come up a little bit short. But when you think about what I expected from the season, I thought we might be 6th. I thought we'd be fighting around the playoff spots. So to have even been talking about automatic promotion is a massive overperformance from where I thought we were going to be. And so I think he's done a fantastic job, albeit that over the last week or so he's just shrunk back a little bit away from where he was. But I think you look at the career and it stands for itself. Chris Wilder's been a fantastic manager for 15, 20 years, and he's just continued to really push himself forward, particularly with Sheffield United.
Joe, in defence of Scott Parker.
Yeah, well, obviously Scott Parker's already got out of this division twice. People do sometimes like to sort of belittle the achievements because it was with 2 very good sides, but you've still got to get it done. Obviously Daniel Farke couldn't manage it last season and stuff, and it's looking like Wilder might not manage it this season. Scott Parker's got it done both times. looking like he's going to get it done this time. And Burnley, I know you're saying obviously everyone were laughing at Blades last season in the Premier League. We weren't that far in front of you. A lot of people were laughing at us as well. We had a very turbulent summer. We lost a lot of players. Obviously, the manager went to Bayern Munich. How we managed that, I have no idea. I'm doing a good job, to be fair, over in Germany, but I could probably win that league. But Scott Parker's turned it all around in a similar fashion. He's kept his cool when other managers around him necessarily haven't. Even Farke were obviously saying some suspect things in press conferences not long ago, saying we will be in the Premier League next season. Probably going to be right, to be fair. Scott Parker's always kept his head, he's always kept his cool, and he's put us in a brilliant position now despite all the turbulence in the summer.
Lovely stuff. Get in the comments down below, Scott Parker or Chris Wilder, who do you prefer as a manager? or Daniel Farke if you want. Yeah. I think that's it with Farke, isn't it? If you say those words, you've got to back it up. And otherwise you end up with egg on your face. The next little debate we're going to do is one I really want to hear. James Trafford versus Michael Cooper. Joe, you can go first on this one.
Yeah, I think Trafford's better of the two goalkeepers. He's younger. I think he's achieved quite a lot in his career already. Obviously, come through the England setup, which helps. You know, he's been called up to senior England squads now. He's obviously going to play for England. I think he goes on to play more for England than Cooper does in Cooper's career. Look at the season they both had this season. Obviously, Trafford's kept the most clean sheets. He's conceded the least goals. I know it's a part of a defence and it's not just about Trafford, but Trafford's got the highest XG prevented in the league. Cooper was close to him at a certain point, but he's drifted away a little bit as Trafford's pulled away, and he's got the highest save percentage of the two. I think he's a better goalkeeper. I think the only reason why some people don't rate Trafford is because of how poor he was in the Premier League last season, and I admit he was quite poor, but I think he got put out to dry by the manager, the previous manager. I think this season he's come on leaps and bounds. His main issue last season was coming for crosses and, you know, demanding his box. Now he's really grown at that, and I do think he's the best keeper in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it and I understand. I think, you know, when you look at that, I do think it's probably likely that Trafford will get more England caps. But I think you look at his pedigree as part of the reason behind that, you know, coming through at Man City, already being sold for big money. You can see why he's already on the radar, having worked his way through the system. For me, the way that I look at the answer to this question is, if I went through this season and we swapped goalkeepers, I think you'd still be exactly where you are, but we'd be a little bit worse. I think Cooper has won us more points than Trafford will have won for you because he's got a fantastic unit in front of him, a really strong back four, about 9 of the best centre-halves in the league, all just sort of stacked up in a row behind each other. Whereas United, you know, we've been playing with quite a disorganised defence. You know, I love the players individually, but Anel and Jack Robinson is not a Premier League centre-half partnership. They're not a promotion-winning centre-half partnership, and Cooper has organised them, commanded his box, commanded his area. He's not really made any mistakes that have really cost us in big moments. He's been a fantastic keeper, huge value added. And for me, I do think that if we were really judging the impact they're having on the squad, I think Michael Cooper, it's massively underestimated how big he's been for United this season. Whereas I think Trafford, as great as his record is, and you can't really argue with it, he's probably going to win Player of the Year, I would imagine, in the Championship, because of just how ridiculous that record is. I think they've got a much better unit around him, whereas Cooper, we're relying on him a lot more.
Can I just say that when Trafford goes to Newcastle in the summer, I'd very happily have Michael Cooper. So, especially if you guys stay down, obviously. If we go up and they stay down, I'd have Cooper, to be fair.
You could poach him. Another great debate as well, Trafford or Cooper. Who do you think is better? In the comments down below. I was going to suggest a combined 11, but I think what we should do instead is, if we are looking at the Championship team of the season, which of your players should definitely be in it?
I think for me, it's the defence.
The whole back four and Trafford, just whack them all in there.
It's hard to argue, though, isn't it? You can make a case for obviously the entire back four. I'd probably argue some of the Leeds fullbacks should be in over our fullbacks, but you've got to have Trafford in there. You've got to have Maxime Esteve in there. You've got to have CJ Egan-Riley in there. You could make a case for Cullen as well, but Cullen's probably not been as good as last time he was in the Championship. Brownhill, you could argue a case of Brownhill. Some Burnley fans still don't rate him, bizarre, but he's been absolutely superb this season in terms of numbers. I actually thought he was better the last time we were in the Championship, to be fair. Same with Cullen, but this season he's been better in terms of numbers. Other than that, I think Edwards, but he's not been there all season, so it's probably hard to argue a case for Edwards. Jadon Anthony's he's very hit for us, but I know a lot of fans don't particularly rate him. He's our most creative player, but I wouldn't even argue a case for Trafford, Steven, CJ. I'm saying they're in there no matter what.
Yeah, I think the record speaks for itself. You know, I would want to argue for Michael Cooper, but that unit deserve their recognition as part of that sort of team of the season really coming together. I think where United stand out for me, and some of the players who I think really don't get the credit they deserve, central midfield for us, Sidney Peck, you know, he's a player who this time last season was an academy player who we weren't even really considering as a starter for United, even in the near future. We thought in the summer he was going to go out on loan to Rotherham, but we picked up big injuries and he's now played just about every minute. He's winning sort of fan votes in terms of who our player of the season is so far. I think it's been outstanding. He's only 20, he's come through in his first big season. I think he's got to get there in the centre of midfield for me, because he's been the one consistent cog that has always kept us ticking over, and he's the player that whenever we need somebody to really stand up and be countered, he gets so much pressure on his shoulders. I think he's been outstanding. I think Gustavo Harmer, I mean, depends on what the debate is. I think if we're talking about the best players in the division, that man is 100% a massive part of the conversation. We've not really got the most out of him playing him on the left wing, but I still think when you look at his impact, his goal contributions, the way that actually everything good that Sheffield United do in terms of chance creation, in terms of being able to just smack a worldie in from 35 yards if you're under the cosh at Bramall Lane, he's got to be in there for me as well, because he's such an important player. And the other one, and I think there'll be a debate around this because there's so many options at that centre forward, but you can't underestimate Tyrese Campbell. He's been outstanding. I think his pace, the way that he just harries defenders, the way that he's always sort of a nuisance for anybody. He's got 10 goals, probably would have more if he'd not picked up big injuries that have affected him through the season and meant that he's never been fully ready to go. They're the three that I think have to be massive parts of the debate. And the one who I think we really shouldn't be able to move out of that squad is Sidney Peck, because I think he's been fantastic for us. I think he'll probably be our player of the season, and I think he should be in the Championship team of the season.
Not Tom Cannon.
Tom Cannon's probably not going to make it, I don't think, this time, guys.
I do like Sidney Peck, to be fair. And just going back to Tyrese Campbell, I think if we had Tyrese Campbell in the Burnley squad this season and he'd had a clean bill of health and not injured, I think we'd have won the league already. That's where we've struggled putting the ball in the back of the net. Yeah. Obviously, Brownhill's had to chip in with a few, Anthony's chipped in with a few. If we had Tyrese Campbell up there, putting the ball in the back of the net, a proper number 9, I think we'd have won the league already.
I think I agree with you there. Right, Monday, score predictions. We need to get to it. How does this game finish? And what does it mean, Ollie?
I think the safest prediction is probably Sheffield United 0. That feels like a relatively straightforward bet in the way that we take this forward. I think it's going to be a really interesting one because United have got to come out and attack it. You know, we're going to have to play the game on our terms. We're going to have to say, we're going to have the ball, we're going to come at you. And I'm really interested in how United line up for it. You know, do we go for an extra attacking sort of player through that middle, or are we going to try and be defensively solid? Are we going to have one eye on the playoffs and take a risk on an 85% fit Vinny Souza? Or do we say, actually, we're not sure we're going to make this? That's probably dictated by what happens on Friday. I think the most likely thing that happens is United start well. I think we'll come out of the traps absolutely firing. I think in the first 10, 15 minutes, you'll probably see us trying to create chances, a lot of pressure being put on those two centre-halves, maybe even a lot of pressure being put onto Trafford. I think we'll try and get long balls in the box, corners, long throws. We'll really want to ramp up all of that intensity. What probably normally happens in that kind of scenario is we get it on the break. You get conceded, Marcus Edwards does something special, or one of the other players really starts to come out there, and at 1-0 down, United don't come back all that well. So my head is telling me that United are going to lose the game 1-0. My heart is screaming at me that that's all complete nonsense. The long throws are going to work. You'll be 2-0 up in the first 20 minutes, and then they'll have to come out. They'll have to start to come at us, and that might just about drag us there. But I think my head's probably the more sensible of the two options right now.
You can't score 2 goals against Burnley. I think that's been proven this season.
If anybody can, it'd be sod's law that we lose at Plymouth, lose to Oxford, lose to Cardiff, win 4-0 at Turf Moor when it doesn't matter.
If you've lost at Cardiff and we've won at Plymouth, you can lose 4-0 at Turf Moor for all I care. But yeah, I think we win it. I think if Sheffield United do try and come at us early on, we'll just hit them on the break because we have got better at that this season. Obviously, you watch Blades a lot more than I do this season, but what I've noticed from Sheffield United is they struggle to create chances in a similar vein to us. I think brilliant goal from Raksaki at the weekend, but I think in the first half against Plymouth, it were 0.03 XG for Plymouth and 0.06 XG for Blades, and it's a very sort of I see so many Blades games like that. Obviously, against Coventry is a different example. It depends which Blades turn up, but I think we can. They didn't lay a glove on us at Bramall Lane, and I think we can proper just sort of like, if we have to stink the gaff out and make it a 0-0, we did it against Leeds, we can do it against them. We can contain them. We contain them at Bramall Lane, and I think if we need to contain them and just hit them on the counter, if we want to do it like that, we can do it. I think we win 2-0.
Perfect. So how does that affect the season? Where do Burnley finish? Where does Sheffield United finish?
I think we finish second now. I've said it a few times recently. I did some filming before where I said I think we'll finish in the top 2, and it was weird because I was looking at that, and obviously you still to play Loot the QPR when I said this. You went down there and won. You'd still to play, I can't remember, another game. That one is, there were 3 games where I'm like, they'll lose at least one, maybe 2 of them, and we'll take advantage. Then they win all of them, and I'm like, maybe we don't finish second then. But then they just fall off an absolute cliff against some teams that they should be beating. So, yeah, I think, like I said earlier, it's going to take 2 massive reverse trajectories for us to finish third and for them to finish second. Like I said, and I don't want to keep bringing it up, but if we beat Watford this coming Friday, and then we beat them, we're obviously promoted at Turf Moor against them, that they won't be able to catch us. So, obviously, famous last words, we lose at Watford, and then obviously you go above us when you beat us on Easter Monday. But like I said, it's going to take a massive turnaround in form from 2 teams for that to happen, and it's just looking unlikely. And I know these supercomputers and stuff, that's not how football's played, but I think at the minute it's like 88% chance that Burnley finish in the top 2, so I'll take that. It's probably the highest it's ever been this season.
Well, I remember when we booked you two to come on this show, I think it was first and second in the league, maybe level on points, and we were like, this is going to be a title battle at the top of the table. As it turns out, it could be Burnley's promotion party after Sheffield United's collapse. Playoffs, should I mention those words to you, Oli?
No. We're not talking about it. No, it's a really bizarre one. Obviously, there was so much confidence going into these last few games, particularly after the game against Coventry. It really did feel as though we were ready to kick on and not just get promoted, but prove we're the best team in the league and sort of try and win the league, We really did seem like that kind of statement performance where we were taking on one of the teams most in form in all of the division and just keeping them at arm's length for 90 minutes, winning so comfortably. But yeah, it's completely fallen apart since then. Look, for the playoffs, lots of fans don't think this way, and I'm sure to fans who aren't Sheffield United fans, they definitely won't understand the logic behind this, but it's not even entered my mind we could win the playoffs, to be honest. It's not been a consideration, From the minute that full-time hit against Plymouth, my first thought was, well, what's the rebuild over the summer? How do we go again next season? Because we've got the worst playoff record in the country. I think it's 8, it might be 9 playoff campaigns, 0 successes. I've seen us lose at Cardiff, I've seen us lose at Wembley twice, I've seen us lose on pens. Every different scenario I've seen happen to United in the playoffs. I've never even seen us score a goal in a playoff final, and we always seem to go in third. There was the season when we had an implosion around this time of the year, and Wednesday pipped us to second. We didn't score against Huddersfield, lost on penalties. We had the one where we'd just come third, last game of the season, could have been second, but dropped out, lost 1-0 to Burnley. There was Wolves when we'd been in the FA Cup semi-final, the League Cup semi-final. We just missed out on automatic promotion, and we lost 3-0 at Wembley, having been by far the best team in the Championship that season, given everything else that went on. It's just something with United in the playoffs. So, yeah, unfortunately, I do see us finishing third. I don't really see any realistic scenario where Leeds or Burnley drop enough points that we catch them up, and therefore that's the playoffs. We'll lose 1-0 in a really limp performance at Wembley where we don't turn up, and then everybody kind of goes, oh, God, can you believe that's how it ended? Yep, I saw it come in today.
Oh, you were so positive when the last time I spoke to you.
I was so happy,
it's completely fallen apart. Just take yourself back to that part. Right, let's enter the final part of the show. And what we're going to do next, I need you guys to work together. We're going to blind rank 5 Championship managers. So I'll name manager, you tell me where you think they should be ranked, and then I'll name another one, and we'll see how silly you look. So, first manager up. I haven't even got the list, so I need to make them off my head. Daniel Farke.
3 feels like a...
Out of 5, though?
Yeah, it depends who the others are, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's exactly how the game works.
I'm trying to think who I would rate higher than Farke. And obviously we're going to... It's difficult. Obviously, we can't get into Simon's head, and because if we
anyone could
Simon's not got a list in front of him, right? So no matter what we do, he's going to make us look silly. So let's just put him third. Let's just put him
3, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, because
set a baseline.
Yeah, that's the baseline.
Next up, John Eustace.
5. No,
he's not at Blackburn anymore.
What's
so
so
frustrating? Better than Farke, though.
This is the thing. That's what's so frustrating with Eustace, and it depends on what we judge, I suppose. Because if we judge a career and how long, they've done it, Farke's proved himself with Norwich twice. He's proved himself that he can get a Leeds team to 90 points consistently. I don't know if he's ever had a Championship season and not got 90 points. Like, it's a ridiculous run that he's got out of these teams. And so it's whether or not do you judge this current job he's doing with Leeds, where last season you'd probably say was a failure despite how many points they got. This season, they've been very, I don't want to say lucky, because they've 100% deserved what they've got, and they've played the best football. But if United don't implode, we're having a very different conversation about where Leeds are in some of that conversation. So it's really difficult, whereas Eustace has done now 3 unbelievably impressive jobs, but all just within 18 months.
Yeah.
You know, you think about where he had Birmingham, insane levels of performance. They were in the playoffs when he leaves. Think about Blackburn, under all of that stress, all of that wider stuff that's going on, again, on the cusp of the playoffs, fantastic form. Derby were dead and buried when we played them under Paul Warne. All of a sudden, not even in the relegation zone right now. So it's 3 really impressive jobs, but in such a short space of time. It's whether or not you'd look at the recency bias or the career longevity.
I think for me, Eustace is a good manager. He unfortunately did a very good job down the M65 and obviously kept them up on the last day of the season. But I don't think he's better than Daniel Farke, and that's kind of why I wanted to push Farke up a little bit.
Right. It turns out
because now we've got Eustace in 4th, and I feel that's harsh on Eustace.
You were
but
right.
I feel like we have to put Eustace 4th. Because I don't think he's better than Farke. But now we're going to get somebody like, I don't know, even though Wayne Rooney's not there anymore, we're going to have to put somebody like Wayne Rooney top here.
Wayne Rooney at number 1's going to kill us.
No, next up, Scott Parker.
I think he's better than Eustace. You could argue...
Put him at 2.
Yeah, I think you could argue him and Farke are at a very similar level, so it's harsh to have Farke underneath Parker. I'm a poet. But I think you've got to put him number 2 out of that.
Agreed.
You can't put him 5th.
No, I don't think you can go 5th. I think as well it's that same conversation, but when you think about the comparisons to Farke did ultimately last season at Leeds have that sort of downgrade of performance where it's gone, whereas Parker will be 3 for 3 in terms of expectations delivered
that
every
with the
single
fact that
time.
he's still got 90 odd points and he was very unlucky to miss out because the Championship was so good last year. But
that's the way football goes.
It is a blip on his record, and Parker, fingers crossed, is going to make it 3 out of 3 and doesn't have that blip yet. So you could probably just edge Parker.
All we're going to say is though, right, 100% Chris Wilder's coming
now. Yeah, we have to put him
100% Chris Wilder's coming.
to put him 5th.
So just to confirm, we've got Scott Parker in 2nd, Daniel Farke in 3rd, and John Eustace in 4th so far.
I think that's all right so far.
Yeah, I'm relatively happy with that, depending
Next
on the 2
up,
names that come next.
Danny Roll.
That's so annoying.
Yeah, he's got to be number 1. I'm sorry, but now Chris Wilder's going to come in and he's going to be 5th and Ollie's going to be fuming and he's probably not going to come back. Next time you try and book him, he'll just say no. I think Danny Roll is one of the best managers in the league.
So, again, though, this is exactly the same conversation we've had previously. I agree, Danny Roll is probably... will prove to be the best manager in the league, but he's in exactly the same position as Eustace, right? Where you're talking about one unbelievable job over 18 months, and we're comparing it to teams who've got 3 consecutive promotions on relegation, 2 consecutive promotions in terms of Farke with Norwich and then coming in. I agree that Roll's current job, I think, is the best in the Championship. I don't think anyone has done a better job with their current club than he's done at Wednesday. They were dead and buried and have then gone on the rise. So if you were judging just the current role, I would agree number 1.
Where are they in the league right
fantastic. But they're not going to get the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're in a terrible, you're talking about somebody who's took a team from relegation to mid-table, comparing to 3 promotions and others. And I think it's unbelievably harsh, and I don't fully believe in it myself. However, I think we go 5.
If you want to go 5, I'll let him go 5 just so you can book him next time. But then you can't. He's going to say it's going to be Chris Wilder and he's going to be 5th, and then you're going to be buzzing.
Yeah, but do you know what though? I'm still not going to be happy with the rankings if Wilder comes out of this at 1.
Yes.
I'm not going to sit here and go, yeah, we've nailed this. We haven't.
Sheffield Wednesday fans will be fuming in the comments, but just so you're all aware, I wanted it to put him first, but I'll let Ollie take the lead on this one.
I think it's exactly the same argument. I think Eustace and Roll are comparable. I think Farke and Parker are comparable, and therefore I think we have to go 5th.
You say that, but I think Roll could do a job at the top of the Championship with Southampton next season, if that's the way he goes. Whereas I don't think Eustace can go into a team like that.
I think Danny Roll will manage at a higher level than any of the managers talk about.
He'll manage in the Premier League, 100%.
100%. And I think he, again, with his current club, has done a better job than anybody else in the Championship. However, I don't think we can realistically put him above the other names in first. What we should have done is left number 3 free. I don't know which idiot said that we should use 3 up so early on.
Where are we putting Danny Roll?
5th.
On him. Well, I'll let him have it.
We've got Parker in 2nd, Farke in 3rd, Eustace in 4th,
Wayne Rooney.
Roll in 5th. And if you said you read me like a book, guys, you should have known that number 5 is Frank Lampard.
Oh, God. To be fair, he's done decent since he's gone in. Would I have him above Parker and Farke? Probably not.
We should have left number 5 free. We should have left number 5 free. I couldn't have Wilder coming up.
I'd rather have Lampard there than Wilder, put it that way. So I don't feel as conflicted as what I potentially could have done this time 5 minutes ago. Lampard's done a good job at Coventry this season. But if he gets you up, he gets Coventry up, and obviously we're buzzing with that. And then you could look back at this and say, well, he's probably done a very good job and he deserves to be there. But Yeah.
We've been
Lampard
done up,
number first.
I've been absolutely done up like a kipper. Frank Lampard first. You heard it here. Best manager in the Championship.
That's all we wanted from you. All we wanted. Right, we'll do a little quick discussion before our Championship treble, because these two teams, Burnley, probably going to be in the Premier League next season. Sheffield United, still quite a strong possibility. However, 17 teams now in the Premier League have been there for a minimum of 4 seasons. It means they've generated £500 million of revenue during that time. How do Burnley or even Sheffield United even try and stay up next season?
Spend a lot of money. I think you've got to spend a lot of money.
Didn't you try that last year, though?
We did, but that's what I mean. You've got to get the recruitment right as well. So I think ultimately, we signed all these players last time, and some of them didn't work. Some of them have left. Some of them now, doing well at Championship level. But can they make the step up again? It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for all three. Even Leeds, Leeds, I've said earlier, have got probably the best starting 11 and the best squad in the league at the minute, but they're going to need to spend £150 million as well, but they probably can. Blades have obviously got new owners as well, so we'll see if they go up, what they can do and what they can spend and stuff. But all three teams are going to need to spend a lot. What I will say about Burnley is obviously you need a good defence to stay in the Premier League, and I think that we are in a good position. Do I think we'll stay up? Absolutely not. But I think we are in a good position now with a good defence. We've got that baseline, and we can hopefully add some attacking quality here and there. We need a number 9, like I said. And if we just get the recruitment right, all three teams need to spend big and get the recruitment right. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's looking very unlikely for all three teams again. Do
you think Trafford and Esteve stay, even if you go up?
I don't think Trafford does, no. I think Steve does. CJ, he's out of contract this summer actually as well, is CJ, so there's an argument that CJ could leave as well.
Be at Bramall Lane?
Okay,
yeah, because that would obviously change things.
That changes things massively. Yeah. Trafford, that's why when I was joking earlier about Cooper, I would genuinely be looking at Bramall Lane saying, well, if they mess up, go and get Michael Cooper. They bought him for what, £2 million? Here's £10 million, massive, 5 extra money. And then we sell Trafford for 40 million. Everyone's happy, apart from Oli, obviously.
I don't think we're taking that as a deal. Double your offer, and we might have a conversation.
Do you think Blades can stay up if they get up?
No. No, I think, do you know what? I actually do think this is probably, in terms of looking at the future and trying to future-proof what this might look like, I think this might be one of the best seasons in terms of trying to get promoted. Because I actually think next season's a real opportunity for whichever teams get there. Because there's 2 ways of looking at this. Because there's one, everything that these clubs can do in terms of what we can control to try and get promoted. And it's right, we have to spend money, but we also have to spend well. I think it's something that we haven't seen now for a long time. Is a team trying to do something different. When Brentford and Brighton went up, they did something different. They were recruiting in a different market, finding value coming out of a number of different teams. They stayed up, managed to establish themselves. When United went up in 2019, we went up with this really exciting style of play that people hadn't seen before. How do you counter overlapping centre-backs? How do you overcome this sort of cohesive unit that just seems to drive through you without you even really knowing where the players are going to be? So they tried something different. So I think what the teams have got to do is not just recruit really well, but find a way of being different. Don't be predictable. Let's not go up and try and play the same style of football that Manchester City are playing, only with 10 times worse players, because that's not going to work for anybody. What we've got to do is find the next way. What's the next evolution of football, and how can we be a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of trying to do something different? The other thing to consider, and obviously this is all speculation and you have no idea what will happen over the summer, but there is a massive cloud hanging over one of the teams in the Premier League, which could see them have a 60, 70, 80 point deduction, depending on what happens. All of a sudden that opens up a spot. One team's got a real chance now because they're chasing you down, but get to 20 points and they can't catch you. So that's one opportunity that comes in. The other one is the business that's going to happen to other clubs in the Premier League. I'm looking at Wolves, for example, and how much of their season is built on the back of Mateus Cunha. How good has he been in terms of winning them points when the going got tough? He's going to leave this summer to a really big club. Are their owners stable? Is their recruitment stable? You look at what they did last summer and the way they had real difficulties. Could they start to be drawn back in because they've got question marks coming in? So I think there is actually, for the first time in a while, a couple of teams I'm looking at and thinking there might be a shot there. And so I think there's a combination there of finding the different and really maximising what your team can do, as well as the potential there for an implosion from other clubs that really gives you an opportunity.
Yeah. I like it. I like it. I also think, sorry to jump in, I also think that we won't get into it, but next season's Championship is already looking far more difficult than this one. Yeah, so for both of your teams, it's a massive chance to get up and try and set up. Yeah,
that's what, and obviously Oli mentioned there the difference in trying not to do the same thing as everybody's done for the last 3-4 seasons, Burnley included, when we went up on a Vincent Kompany, played ridiculous football and just played into everyone's hands. We were 3-0 down after 15 minutes like 4 or 5 times. We will be different next year. Like I said, we will be that club that is different, kind of similar to the Dyche way under Sean Dyche. So I think we can be that different side next year. I think Leeds will go up, they'll continue to do what they've done this season, they'll spend a lot of money and try and then, in their heads, break into sort of like mid-table and stuff. I've seen Leeds fans saying, when we go up, we're awakening a sleeping giant. The country's not going to know what's it here. Like, let's get there first. And again, it's going to be very difficult, even if you spend all that money. But I think with us, a good defence, solid foundations, hopefully they all don't leave, and then we can kick on from there.
Absolutely. Right, let's finish with our Championship treble. And because Gab isn't here this week, we're going to pick one fixture each to make up our Championship treble you can find on Betfred. I'm going to start. Millwall to beat Blackburn away. I think Millwall have won 4 of the last 5 games. Absolutely flying. Obviously beat Sheffield United. I won't rub that in too much. Oli beat Middlesbrough. There's so much to like about Millwall right now, really making a late push for the playoffs. So I'm going to back them to win on Friday. How about you, Joe?
I'm going to go Hull to beat Swansea. Hull are very good away from home. Swansea have had a couple of wins recently, admittedly, and pulled away a little bit. I think they might take the foot off the gas a little bit. Hull will be fighting for their lives, and like I said, backed up with a very good away form, so I think they'll carry that on, get the win, which will more than likely see them stay in the Championship next season.
Yeah, I think we're getting against beachy teams there, aren't we? Teams who've got nothing left to play for in the middle. And I'm going for a beachy team, but beachy in a slightly different way. I think Bristol City beat Sunderland at Ashton Gate. I think that's a really good opportunity for them. They seem to be flying. I loved the scenes that we saw midweek when Bristol City got that win against West Brom right late on. I mean, that was really exciting to see. The place came alive.
I didn't like seeing those scenes.
But the place came alive and it was fantastic for them. I think Sunderland really strike me as a team now that are just waiting for the end of the season in the playoffs. They seem to be, maybe rotating, resting some of the players, make sure they're fully fit, make sure they come into the playoffs in form. And so I think Bristol City are a really good bet there to try and take the 3 points.
Absolutely. We'll see if we can get a winner on Friday. We will be back next week on Sportsman Untitled on Tuesday after this amazing clash to look forward to on Easter Monday. Burnley could be promoted by then next time we chat. I'll be joined by Borough Breakdown and Gab Sutton will be back as well. Thank you both very much for joining me as always. Make sure you like and subscribe. Get your thoughts in the comments below. Who is going up from the Championship? But we'll see you next week.